Right. As we approach the end of a calendar year, many of us have the practice of looking back on the year that was, reflecting on the highs and lows of the year, and shape our dreams and aspirations for the coming year. At Software People Stories, we are running a special series of conversations with people on their own approaches as well as practices and stories of how their thinking has changed over the years. Today, my guest is Paramu Kurumathur, a colleague and a published serial author. He talks about the two types of books that he writes and how he motivates himself to make progress even when there are no externally set deadlines. How he plans and prioritizes time across projects and the significance of a calendar. I also talk about his thoughts on the year-end reflection and analogies from astronomy. I asked him about the repeating cycles in calendars and their relevance, and I also wanted to know his perspectives on the usefulness of year-end reflections and New Year resolutions. Listen on and be inspired. Yeah. Hi, Paramu. Welcome back to the Software People Stories.
Hi, Shiv. How are you? I'm very happy to be here. The previous experience was really good. So I suppose even this time it'll be great.
Yeah, it's all because of you. And I think since the time we spoke last, I think a lot of pages have flown or words have flown, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this time what we thought was being the end of the year. We'll try to understand how you kind of either reflect on the year that was or plan ahead. Both general, because from whatever I know, you are always working on multiple projects, multiple books, so to say, more specifically. Okay. Now, in that case, being also a creative activity, probably each one progresses at its own pace.
Right.
So how do you first set your goals or identify what it should be? And then, of course, the who done it, why done it, how done it, all those things will probably come in as it evolves. So which means that while you have a broad direction, how do you keep track of whether you are on track or whether you need to have some dramatic twists and turns, and all those things? We thought that may be of interest to our listeners, to derive some insights onto general planning, because here is a time when people start reflecting and not getting into a depression saying, oh, I had so many things I wanted to do, but then I hardly did anything.
Right.
So it's all yours. Take it away.
Okay. So see, I'm writing two sets of books, right? One is technical books. And for that, I'm kind of, I'm answerable to PM Power, right? Then there's another set of books, which is not technical. It's more of stories or Sanskrit or one of those kinds of books, for which I'm not answerable to anybody. Right? So I only give it to the publisher after I finish writing it. Therefore, I'm not answerable to anybody, right? So that these two kind of, so I don't really plan for the second set of books. I don't do much planning. For the first set, yes, I do. This year, for example, in 2023, we started with this practitioner's guide to enterprise agility, right? And there, the one experiment that I did with PM Power was to involve two other authors along with it. You, as you know, and also J. Viruraghavan. So that, I think it turned out fairly successfully, right? And we had a goal of finishing and getting the book published by the end of the year, which I think we have almost meeting, right? So I think by the early January, we'll have the book published and be ready, right? So there is a bit of planning involved as to who will do what, right? And also by when people will do what, right? So there's some planning involved there, right? Whereas in the other book, it's just written for pleasure. And by the way, I get paid. You and I get paid for writing this book, this technical book from PM. For the other book, I don't get paid. I get paid only if the book sells. And there, the main thing is writing for pleasure, writing for happiness, right? So as I think Krishna said told Arjuna, right? Yeah, so you're right. Happiness is actually in writing the book, right? Not in actually getting it published. In fact, I published an article called The 5 Values of Writing for Enjoyment, right? And one is writing the book or publishing the book, right? So as you would say, karmanyeva abhyudayaste ma phaleshu kadachana. So the happiness is actually in the writing, not in the publishing, right? So,
but if I may ask, the gestation period for you to write the non-technical books,
right,
compared to your first book, the first article, the second one on Sanskrit,
right,
was much shorter.
Right.
And then now your book on time or the other novel or other things that you're doing, does that change? But when you don't have a set goal, how do you motivate yourself to make progress?
Actually, see, the main difference between the Sanskrit book and the other book was that the Sanskrit book had a set of things that you wanted to say, right? There's no suspense. There's nothing that you're actually creating. You're only creating the structure of the book. Everything else is sourced from different places, and you put everything together, right? Whereas in a novel, I mean, it's up in the air. Right? You have to think of who killed who, right? How to add pace. In fact, right now I have kept aside my book on calendars of India, and I'm writing the book on the murder, right? The murder that happened in the US 40 years ago, right? And there now I'm suddenly being stuck as how to add pace to the book. So you can't just keep talking about I talked to this guy, I talked to that guy. Something should happen. Therefore, now I've introduced an immediate murder. One of the people who you talk to gets murdered, right? So the old murderer is still kind of active. So that adds a little bit of pace and a little bit of zest to the book, right? So so the thing is that the difference between the Sanskrit book and a novel is that this thing you have to create things. The other one is more of in fact, the Sanskrit book is also a technical book in that sense. Though not a software technical, it's more of a Sanskrit technical book, right? So it's got certain things to be said. There's nothing that you have to create. Everything is there. You're just putting things together and then telling it. Well, here it's not that way. And that's why it takes, even the calendar book is a kind of technical book. Even the calendar book is a technical book. But it's more difficult because the material available is not that much, right? Because you have to read the Surya Siddhanta. It's all very difficult to read. A Sanskrit book, you read a few grammar books. It's all easy read. Whereas this book, the murder mystery that I'm writing now, it's a very, it's completely creative. You have to look at pace, you have to look at who killed who, you have to look at why, motives. So that's why it takes time.
Since we are on the theme of the year-end thoughts and New Year resolutions and all that,
right?
Ultimately, it boils down to prioritizing and allocating time.
Right.
Now, when you have these two different types of projects that are going on, one where you have some kind of a structure, some outline, probably some deadlines and so on.
Right.
And something else that is a little more fluid.
Right.
How do you plan your time?
No, I prioritize completely on the technical book first. But that has a deadline. So I finished that. So right now, some editing thing will be coming from the publisher. So I have to actually go through that before I do my other book. Right? So I prioritize the one where I'm getting paid over the one where I'm not getting paid immediately. Right? Yeah, and of course, my third, my guitar is also there. So I have to prioritize between among these three. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also am involved in multiple activities. I say some I do for the thrill.
Right.
And some I do for the bill.
Correct. Exactly. The bill and the thrill. Right. Yeah.
So coming back to that, when you prioritize, let's say, the little more structured way of working over the other one, does that interrupt your creative juice flow?
Yes, it does. It does. See, what happens is when I come back to this other book, I mean, I have to read the whole book again, what I've written so far, to get the threads together, right? So, in fact, I remember in the first Aryan, there was something that I wrote, right? And then the editor actually said, look, this is not consistent with what you said before.
Okay.
Right? She actually found that out. Right? So similarly, you may find that there are inconsistencies, especially if there's time in between. So, yeah, so that is something which one has to guard against. So you have to come back, read the whole thing once more to make sure that what you're saying is consistent with what you have said before. Yes.
Yeah, for instance, even many popular New Year resolutions. I believe the most popular one is lose weight.
Right.
The other one is about learning something new or reading something,
Correct.
etc., which is more about the self-development.
Right.
But there also, one about losing weight probably requires a lot more discipline in terms of
Right.
either exercising or doing something, and maybe control over food. Whereas the other one, there is a little bit of flexibility, particularly if you're doing these online courses or
Right.
books that you want to read, etc. So, from your experience, are there some tips for people to manage their time which have different patterns of demand on time?
Yeah, managing time. I think losing weight, right? If you've taken that kind of a vow, as it were, at the beginning of the year, then you have to do your morning exercise, morning walk, right? And then you have to set aside times for that. That's what I do. I get up in the morning, I have my coffee, then I do my exercise, then I go for a walk. But that has become a habit, right? So you have to make it into a habit. So that takes time. See, what happens is for most of the people, even the guitar, learning guitar, many people start, but they don't take it further. So right now, if I take my guitar learning, I'm stuck at a point where I've become a beginner, a good beginner, but not progressing beyond that, right? So in fact, I got the certificate from the teacher. But now I have to figure out how to go to the next level of, and that requires, I think, more practice, right? And so basically, the whole thing is practice. Even eating less is a practice. What I'm told is that your urge to eat comes more from your brain than from your stomach, because so to control eating, I'm not a good controller of eating. I eat. I mean, after this,
you enjoy eating.
Yeah, I enjoy eating. Yes. So after this recent my medical test, I've tried to reduce my snacking in between.
Okay.
Right, but even then, it's not anywhere near what I want it to be. Right. So I think the main thing is when you have these demands on time, and managing it is actually creating a habit out of it. That's what I think. So you have a habit of walking in the morning. So morning time is left for that. Then say after breakfast, you want to have a nap, get up, then do your office work. Then you have lunch, have a nap, do your other work. Then you do your guitar. Then you watch some TV. I mean, so you have to kind of plan your day, right? But of course, it cannot be as if you're so straight-laced that you'll do only that, right? But if you have loosely set aside some times, right, then I think it'll work. That's my thinking. It's not. I mean, yeah. So to prioritize and to plan your day, to make sure you do what you have resolved, you have to set aside those times and do only that during that time. Of course, there is a difference between me and a person who has a day job. They may have to go to office at 7 and come back only by 8. Then they'll have to kind of maybe do things on the weekend or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, staying on the theme of time, but on a larger scale, of calendars. Is there, what is the significance of having a calendar? Which means that there are cycles. And you have days and weeks and months and years and eons and whatever. Right? But isn't any day as good as any other day to start something?
Yes.
Whereas we normally say New Year resolution, New Year becomes a New Year's Day becomes a very special day. Or some people say birthday. Or of course we have the financial years which follow a different cycle. I mean the cycle, but then it starts on a different day, etc. So what is the significance of this whole thing of having any periodicity of repetition?
Okay, there's two questions you have asked. One is, what is the significance of having a calendar? The other thing is the periodicity, right? So the calendar, the main thing is to actually, it's like a watch also, right? When you want to set something with some other person, so I want to meet you 5 days from now, right? If you say, let us meet 365 days from now, but you keep counting every day. Instead, if there's a calendar, it actually gives a name or a number or a label to that day, right? So you and him having the same what's the word, same standard, right? You can then go and meet that person or do whatever on that labeled day, right? So I think that is in my mind, that's only significance of having a calendar, right? So you can label days in certain fashion, so you can have people, two people synchronizing whatever they want to do. That's the only significance of a calendar as I know.
Okay.
As far as periodicity is concerned, there's no big deal at all. In my sense, that any day is as good as any other day. So financial year, 1 year. See, the thing about the year is that it's actually a cycle which you can see, right? Because the seasons change, right? Just like the day, sun rises and sets. That's another cycle you can see. Similarly, you can see the moon changing phases. And these are all observable things, right? So the moon changing phases made the month, the seasons changing made the year, and the sun rising and setting made the day. And then people try to figure out if there's some kind of connection between these three, which there is not, right? There's no real integral, nothing goes into the other in an integral fashion, right? So these are the three main things that people have actually used as ways to periodicize, right? The next higher thing is actually galactic year. This is 235 million years or something like that, which we can't use, right? So I think these three are the main periods that we are aware of, right? And that's the Earth going around the sun is the fastest movement that you are aware of, really, other than the speed of light. It goes at 30 kilometers a second or something. Of course, the sun goes around the galaxy at 300 kilometers something a second, but we are not aware of that, right? So these are the three periods, right? And these periods can start from anywhere. Can start from any point of the Earth's orbit, right? So we can start from the perihelion, aphelion, or anywhere, right? Or you can start from the day you were born, right? Similarly, the day, you can start from anywhere, right? You can start at midnight or sunrise, sunset. And all these are used. Some people use sunrise, the Arabs use sunset, right? Some people use the midnight. So, and similarly, the month, you can start the full moon, new moon, or any moon. Right? So these periods have no significance except that things repeat. That's the cycles. But you can start anytime.
Yeah, that's interesting because the concept of things like biorhythms,
right,
which say they start on the day you're born.
That's
when the whole cycle starts and then moves on.
Right.
And there are also some theories that say that a person is usually most receptive and probably a little pensive on their birthday. Now, here, while I can kind of relate to that conceptually, depending on the calendar you choose. For instance, if you choose an Indian calendar system or use the star as a basis, it may not be 365 days, right? There can be some thing here and there. The month may be different because you have a Masa and stuff like that. So which again brings me back to this whole practice of year-end reflection and New Year resolutions. What would be your perspective on that?
No, it's again only it's a custom that people have created, saying that that's all. If you look at the Bible, right, they say that every 49 years, after 49 years, the 50th year, you don't do anything. You let the fields lie fallow, right? You redistribute all the land equally among everyone, right? Of course, it's a highly right utopian kind of thing, and that's why the 50th year is called the Jubilee.
Okay,
the bells of the Jubilee shall sound, they say, right? So that's what is called the Jubilee, right? So similarly, what you're trying to do is to figure out how you're doing, I suppose, in your life. At the end of 1 year, seasons have changed. So winter has gone, new spring has started. Let's see how we are going to do this year, right? For this cycle of seasons. So I think when you do your assessment, this is actually a custom decided by various people together, right? Of course, you can do it every 12 years, every Jupiter cycle, or you can do it every 30 years, every Saturn cycle. All that you can do, right? But a year is not too long, nor is it too short. And it gives you 12 sub-assessment periods called the month. Right? So I think that's how they... And of course, week is something which kind of intruded in between. And we have used that as a way of deciding on working days and holidays, right? So, but that doesn't seem to have any astronomical significance. It's neither here nor there. It's kind of half a fortnight or something, but not fully half a fortnight. So I think there's nothing significant, religious, or in any way about any of these starting points. You can say one day Krishna was born, another day Rama was born, another day Jesus was born. That's it. So it's not a...
But what about the process of reflection and planning itself? One is about when it is done.
Right.
That's what we spoke about now. But is it even useful, from your experience, to periodically pause, periodically reflect, and also look forward to some things?
Okay, so there are two things. One thing is there somebody is paying money for your daily food, right? So per annum, if you're eating due to somebody else, then you have to make sure that you're satisfying that person's requirements. Right? So that assessment actually is to figure out whether you have done what is needed to be done. Even if even in a just enough needed kind of fashion, right? So that is the other one. Is you're assessing whether you have learned something, whether you have because there's nobody to question you on when you finish anything, right? So you're trying to figure out what you have learned so far, why you haven't reached where you wanted to reach. So that assessment is slightly different from the other assessment. So in the first assessment process, you're more rigorous. You take what you had planned at the beginning and then you compare and make sure that you're reached where you wanted to reach. The other one, there's no real plan. You're just comparing against your what do you call it, your desires or your thoughts or whatever, right? So there are two different kinds of assessment, I think. And I'm not good at either, I think. I don't know.
So is that possibly one reason why many of the New Year resolutions or aspirations are not followed through?
Yeah, I think the problem with these New Year resolutions is that I think the main problem there is this New Year business, right? So people say, okay, I will start from the New Year onwards. I think any resolution you have to start today, yeah. Otherwise it won't work. You have to start today, and then if you wait for 1 month, your whole motivation actually, I think, dilutes. And of course, when you go for a walk in the park on January 1st, there's hundreds of people there. Next day is only tens. Right. So I think, yeah. So I think the main problem is not the planning, but actually the planning for another day. If you start today, when you really feel that you have to do it, maybe you will get the rhythm of doing it better than when you wait for 1 day to start. Maybe, I'm just thinking. So the resolution, maybe the other thing could be that you're making too big a resolution. Yeah. Right. So if you say I'll walk 10 miles a day, it's not going to work. So yeah, could be. And of course, you have it's also your willpower. Yeah. You have to have that willpower too, which is difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a topic for a different conversation.
Right.
Yeah. So now just closing out on all the points that we touched upon.
Right.
So when one has a mix of, I mean, in a way, probably if I were to extend this analogy of the thrills versus bills as the work-life balance.
Right.
For work, when you are constrained by others and what you do for life,
right.
It's up to you. Whether it is that, or in terms of juggling, multiple hats, or taking on multiple activities which have different demands on your time.
Right.
The discipline to be able to manage time, the ability to quickly switch context. Like you said, on the creative side, you may need to reread what you wrote or compare,
Right.
and kind of continue and all that. And a third thing is when you do this, since there is no real significance of any one date over the other.
Right.
Possibly one can do it every day during the morning walk. Maybe try to combine that discipline with your reflection and planning for the day, etc. As a concept, I think periodic planning, which is probably a way of injecting hope in oneself.
Right.
There is something to look forward to. And then reflecting to figure out what probably got derailed or what probably made it work, to build further on that. And doing it periodically is a good practice. Is that a kind of a reasonable summary of what we spoke?
Yes, it's a reasonable summary. I think the main thing is that for you to get this discipline in you, I think you have to enjoy what you're doing. The moment you start enjoying what you're doing, I think all the problems of not doing it will go away. If you enjoy walking in the morning, you will walk. If you enjoy exercising, you will do it. So I think the main, but don't ask me how to do it, but I think you have to bring in that enjoyment in writing. So writing technical books, writing other books, doing a coaching, doing whatever it is. You do it as a fun thing. And I think you will do it. If you don't do it, if you think it's a chore, then you won't do it. I think that's what makes the main difference.
Yeah, I couldn't resist drawing an analogy to the picture that I see behind you.
Right.
At least from here, it looks like it is probably a seesaw. Even though there is a picture of a person and there is a bar and then there are two triangular things. But then on top, you have, I guess, two birds headbutting.
Right.
So probably always the conflict between your free will or your creative side and what you need to do in a more predictable, routine, scriptable
what
fashion.
You need to do to survive.
Yeah.
Do a lot of things to survive. You have to go and buy milk. All sorts of things you have to do, right, to survive.
But maintain the balance.
Correct.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you,
Paramu. I think one request is, since we did anchor on the periodicity being something that is good, I think we should plan these kinds of conversations also on a more regular basis.
Oh, yes. Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Thanks, Paramu.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.